On the way to the hospital with my broken arm, my husband got an emergency call from his ex-wife. "Steve, my water just broke, I need someone to take me to the hospital." Without hesitation, he pulled over, kicked me out of the car, looked me in the eye, and said, "This is more important. Call an Uber." Now, I'm planning a surprise for him when he gets back. I still can't believe what happened 3 days ago. I'm sitting here typing this with my left hand because my right arm is in a cast, and I'm absolutely seething. But also, I'm excited for what's coming next. Let me start from the beginning. My husband Steve, 35M, and I, 32F, have been married for 4 years. He has an ex-wife, Monica, 33F, who he was married to for 6 years before their divorce. They don't have kids together, but they stayed friendly, which I initially thought was mature of them. Now I realize it was just Steve being unable to cut the cord. 3 days ago, I was coming down the stairs in our house when I missed the last step and fell hard on my right side. The pain was immediate and excruciating. I knew something was seriously wrong with my arm. Steve heard me scream and came running. One look at my arm hanging at an odd angle and we both knew I needed to get to the hospital immediately. Steve helped me to the car, and we were driving to the emergency room when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Monica and my stomach dropped. Steve has this thing where he always answers when Monica calls, no matter what we're doing. Dinner, movies, even during intimate moments, if Monica calls, Steve drops everything. "Hey Monica, what's up?" he answered, putting it on speaker while driving. "Steve, thank God you answered. My water just broke and I'm home alone. Jake is out of town for work and won't be back until tomorrow. I need someone to take me to the hospital right now." For context, Monica remarried 2 years ago to some guy named Jake, and they've been expecting their first child together. I knew she was due soon, but I had no idea it would become my problem. Here's where my world tilted off its axis. Without missing a beat, Steve immediately pulled over to the side of the road. "Of course, Monica. I'm on my way." "Which hospital?" "Steve," I said, my voice tight with pain and disbelief, "we're literally on our way to the hospital right now. My arm is broken." He looked at me like I was being unreasonable. "Sarah, Monica is about to have a baby. This is an emergency." "So is this." I held up my clearly broken arm, tears streaming down my face from both pain and shock. "She'll be fine," he said dismissively. "Look, get out of the car. Call an Uber or something. Monica needs me right now, this is more important." I sat there in complete shock. "Are you seriously choosing your ex-wife over your actual wife right now?" "Sarah, stop being dramatic. Monica is having a baby. Your arm isn't going anywhere, it can wait an hour." That's when he actually got out of the car, walked around to my side, opened the door, and gestured for me to get out. On the side of a busy road. With a broken arm. While he went to play hero for his ex-wife. "This is more important. Call an Uber," he said, looking me dead in the eye. I've never felt so small, so worthless, so utterly betrayed in my entire life. But I got out of that car because what choice did I have? Steve drove off without another word, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with my arm throbbing and my heart shattered. The Uber ride to the hospital was a blur of pain medication requests and tears. The driver, an older man named Carlos, was incredibly kind. When he saw my condition, he insisted on helping me into the emergency room and even waited to make sure I got checked in okay. A complete stranger showed me more compassion than my own husband. At the hospital, I had to fill out forms with my left hand, sit alone in the waiting room for 3 hours, and eventually learned that I had a compound fracture that required surgery. The nurse kept asking where my emergency contact was, and I had to keep explaining that my husband was dealing with something else. The surgery went well, but I had to stay overnight for observation. Not once did Steve call or text to check on me. Not once. I got home the next afternoon via taxi, because of course Steve wasn't there to pick me up, to find a note on the kitchen counter: "Sarah, Monica had the baby. Healthy baby girl, 7 pounds 3 ounces, staying at the hospital to help out since Jake still isn't back. We'll be home tomorrow. Hope your arm is okay. Steve. Hope my arm is okay. Hope my arm is okay." That night, while I struggled to make myself a sandwich with one functioning arm, I had a lot of time to think. And plan. See, here's what Steve doesn't know: I'm not just his wife. I'm also a freelance accountant, and one of my biggest clients happens to be Steve's company. I've been doing their books for 2 years, which means I have access to a lot of information that Steve's boss would find very interesting. Like how Steve has been claiming his weekly client dinners as business expenses when they're actually dinner dates with Monica. Every Tuesday for the past 8 months, Steve has been meeting Monica at expensive restaurants, claiming it was for networking with potential clients. The receipts always list 2 meals, wine, appetizers, definitely not solo dining. Or how Steve has been using the company credit card for personal purchases that he then categorizes as office supplies or client gifts. That $300 bottle of perfume he bought Monica for her birthday? Listed as promotional materials. The weekend getaway they took to Portland last month while I thought he was at a business conference? All on the company dime, documented as client retreat expenses. I've been keeping meticulous records because it's my job, but I never thought I'd need to use them like this. But wait, there's more. Yesterday, while Steve was still playing house at the hospital, I did some digging. Turns out Monica's husband Jake isn't actually out of town for work. I found his social media posts from that exact day. He was at a work happy hour across town. Monica lied about being alone, and Steve was so eager to play knight in shining armor that he didn't even question it. I also discovered that Steve has been paying Monica's car insurance for the past year. Monthly payments of $180 from our joint account, categorized as miscellaneous expenses when I asked about them. Our joint account that I contribute to equally, meaning I've been unknowingly paying for his ex-wife's car insurance. The final straw? I found text messages on Steve's iPad. He forgot to log out, between him and Monica planning their Tuesday dinner dates. Messages like "can't wait to see you tonight, missed you so much," and "these dinners are the highlight of my week." The most recent one, sent the day before my accident, said, "I know we said we'd keep things platonic, but I think we both know this is heading somewhere. Jake doesn't need to know. So here's my plan, and it's already in motion. Phase 1, financial reckoning complete. I've compiled every single fraudulent expense Steve has charged to his company over the past 2 years. We're talking about over $15,000 in personal expenses charged as business costs. I've created a detailed report with receipts, dates, and explanations. This is going directly to his boss and the company's CFO first thing Monday morning. Phase 2, the truth bomb in progress. I've gathered all evidence of Steve and Monica's ongoing emotional affair, including text messages, dinner receipts, and hotel bookings. I'm creating a nice little package that will be delivered to Jake, Monica's husband, along with a note explaining exactly why his wife lied about him being out of town. Phase 3, legal consultation scheduled. I have an appointment with a divorce attorney on Monday. In our state, emotional affairs and financial infidelity are grounds for divorce, and the fact that Steve used marital funds to wine and dine his ex-wife while neglecting his actual wife's medical emergency? Well, let's just say my lawyer seemed very confident about my case. Phase 4, the grand exit plan. Steve thinks he's coming home to his understanding, forgiving wife who will just be happy he helped bring a baby into the world. Instead, he's going to find divorce papers, an empty house, and a forwarded copy of the report I sent to his boss. Phase 5, social consequences. Ready to deploy. I've screenshot everything. The text messages, the financial records, photos of me in my hospital bed alone while he was playing daddy to another man's child. Our entire social circle is going to know exactly what kind of man Steve really is. But here's the beautiful part, I'm not doing any of this out of spite alone. I'm doing it because Steve showed me exactly where I stand in his priorities, and I'm simply responding in kind. He chose Monica over me when I needed him most. So I'm choosing myself over him in everything that matters. The money he stole from his company to fund his affair? That's between him and his employer now. The lies he told me about his Tuesday business dinners? Monica's husband deserves to know the truth. The marriage he destroyed when he left me bleeding on the side of the road? I'm just making it official. Steve called me this morning, finally, to say he'd be home tonight and that he hoped I wasn't too upset about the other day. He actually had the audacity to tell me that I should be proud of him for stepping up when Monica needed him, and that this whole experience has made him realize how much he values being there for the people who matter. The people who matter. I told him I couldn't agree more, and that I've learned the same lesson. He seemed pleased that I was being so understanding. He has no idea what's waiting for him. Update, Steve just got home. I heard his key in the lock about 20 minutes ago. I'm currently locked in our upstairs bedroom, well, my bedroom now, since the house is in my name, another thing Steve apparently forgot, while he discovers his new reality downstairs. First, he found the divorce papers on the kitchen table where his welcome home note used to be. Then he found the printed copies of all his fraudulent expense reports. Then he found the letter from my attorney. I can hear him calling my name, his voice getting increasingly panicked. He's trying to come upstairs, but I changed the locks on the bedroom door yesterday, thank God for YouTube tutorials and left-handed screwdrivers. Sarah, what is this? What did you do? He's banging on the door now. Sarah, please, let me explain. You don't understand, Monica needed help. I was trying to do the right thing. Oh, I understand perfectly, Steve. You did exactly what you thought was right. And so did I. My phone is buzzing with messages. Some are from Steve's coworkers who apparently just saw the email I sent to his boss. Some are from mutual friends who just received my detailed explanation of recent events. And one is from Jake, Monica's husband, thanking me for opening his eyes and asking if I want to grab coffee sometime to compare notes about our cheating spouses. Steve is still pounding on the door, alternating between anger and desperate pleading. He's promising to make this right and swearing that nothing physical happened with Monica. Too little, too late, Steve. You made your choice when you left your injured wife on the side of the road for another woman. I made mine when I decided I deserve better than a man who sees me as disposable. The locksmith is coming tomorrow to change all the exterior locks. Steve's belongings are already packed and sitting by the front door. I spent all day yesterday boxing up his things with one functioning arm, because that's how motivated I was to get him out of my life. My lawyer says I have an excellent case for emotional abandonment and financial infidelity. The fraudulent expense reports alone are going to cost Steve his job, and possibly result in criminal charges for embezzlement. Monica's husband Jake has already filed for separation and is demanding a paternity test, convinced that Steve might be the baby's father given the timeline of their affair. And me? I'm sitting here with my broken arm, feeling more empowered and clear-headed than I have in years. Sometimes the trash really does take itself out. You just have to give it the right motivation. Steve is getting quiet downstairs. I think reality is finally sinking in. But this isn't the end of the story, it's just the beginning of my new life without a man who valued me so little that he'd literally abandoned me in my moment of greatest need. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But sometimes, it's even better served with a side of justice and a garnish of "you absolutely had this coming." Final update, edit, 6 hours later. Steve finally left about an hour ago, after realizing I wasn't going to open the bedroom door and that his key no longer worked in the front door lock. I had an emergency locksmith come out, worth every penny. Before he left, he slid a note under the bedroom door. It was 2 pages of handwritten desperation, begging me to reconsider, promising he'd cut off all contact with Monica, swearing that he loved me and made a terrible mistake. The note ended with, "Sarah, please don't destroy my life over one bad decision. I know I messed up, but Monica was having a baby. What kind of man would I be if I didn't help her?" I wrote him a note back and slid it under the door. "Steve, you're absolutely right. What kind of man abandons a woman who needs him?" I guess we both found out the answer to that question. The man who would do that is the same man who steals from his employer to fund an affair, lies to his wife for months, and uses their joint funds to pay another woman's bills. You didn't destroy your life over one bad decision. You destroyed it with a pattern of betrayal and disrespect that culminated in you showing me exactly how little I matter to you. I hope Monica appreciates the sacrifice, because it cost you everything. Don't contact me again unless it's through our lawyers. I haven't heard from him since. My phone has been blowing up all evening. Apparently, word travels fast in our social circle. Steve's boss called him tonight and fired him effective immediately, not just for the fraudulent expenses, but because the company has a morality clause and Steve's behavior reflects poorly on their values. 3 of our mutual friends have reached out to tell me they suspected something was going on with Steve and Monica but didn't know how to bring it up. Apparently, they were seen together frequently around town, always looking very cozy according to my friend Lisa. Monica's husband Jake texted me again. He confirmed that he wasn't out of town at all, he was literally 20 minutes away from Monica when she went into labor. She chose to call Steve instead of her own husband. Jake is devastated, but grateful that I helped him see the truth. And here's the cherry on top, Jake discovered that the baby was born exactly 38 weeks after Steve and Monica's Portland business trip last month. He's demanding that paternity test ASAP. As for me? I'm surprisingly at peace. Yes, my arm hurts and I'm going through a divorce, but I've never felt more confident in my worth and my decisions. I spent 4 years married to a man who saw me as a convenience rather than a priority. When push came to shove, literally, in my case, he showed me exactly where I ranked in his life. So I showed him exactly where he ranks in mine. The best part? I don't even feel guilty. Steve made his choices, and now he gets to live with the consequences. I just made sure those consequences actually mattered. Sometimes the best revenge is simply holding someone accountable for their actions and refusing to enable their behavior any longer. Steve wanted to play hero for Monica? Now he can figure out how to be the hero of his own story without a job, a wife, or the respect of anyone who knows what he did. As for me, I'm looking forward to building a life with someone who would never, ever leave me broken on the side of the road for anyone. Because that's what I deserve. And now I finally believe it. Edit, thank you for all the awards and supportive comments. I'll update again if there are any major developments, but for now, I'm focusing on healing and moving forward. To everyone asking, yes, my arm is doing better, and no, I don't regret any of it. Sometimes you have to break completely before you can rebuild into something stronger. Major update, 48 hours later. Oh my gosh, you guys. I thought the story was over, but it just got so much more interesting. I'm honestly shaking as I type this. So yesterday morning, I got a call from Jake, Monica's husband, asking if we could meet for coffee. He sounded really shaken up, and frankly, I was curious about what he'd discovered since our last conversation. We met at a little cafe downtown, and what he told me completely blew my mind. Jake brought a manila folder with him, and the first thing he showed me were Monica's phone records from the past year. Not just call logs, detailed text message records that he'd subpoenaed through his lawyer for the separation proceedings. "Sarah," he said, sliding the papers across to me, "this goes back way further than we thought. The text messages between Steve and Monica started 11 months ago, just 3 months after Monica and Jake's wedding. 11 months. This wasn't some recent rekindling of old feelings. This was a sustained, deliberate affair that began almost immediately after Monica supposedly moved on with her new husband. But here's the kicker, Monica had been telling Steve that she was unhappy in her marriage from the very beginning. Messages like "I made a mistake marrying Jake and I only married him because I thought you'd moved on and I think about you every single day." Steve's responses were just as damning. "I never got over you and Sarah is nice, but she's not you and I only stayed married because I didn't know you still had feelings for me." I sat there reading these messages, and I swear Jake had to hand me napkins because I was crying so hard. Not just from hurt, though, from pure, unadulterated rage. "There's more," Jake said quietly, and pulled out bank statements. Turns out, Steve hadn't just been paying Monica's car insurance. He'd been sending her money every month for almost a year. $500 here, $300 there, always with innocent explanations in the memo line: loan repayment, birthday gift, emergency help. Jake found over $8,000 in transfers from Steve to Monica's personal account. My money. Money from our joint account that I'd been contributing to equally, thinking it was going toward our shared future. But wait, it gets worse. Jake then showed me hotel receipts, not just from their Portland trip, but from 6 different overnight stays over the past 8 months. Steve had been telling me he was traveling for work, staying in client cities for overnight meetings. Except every single one of those trips corresponded with Monica's girls' weekends that she'd been telling Jake about. They'd been having regular overnight affairs for months, and both of us had been completely clueless. Sarah, Jake said, I need to ask you something, and please be honest. Did you know about any of this? I looked him straight in the eye and said, Jake, 3 days ago I thought my biggest marital problem was that my husband answered his ex-wife's calls too quickly. I had no idea we were both married to liars. That's when Jake told me the real bombshell. The baby, he said, the paternity test results came back this morning. My heart stopped. And? She's Steve's. I literally dropped my coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, and I just sat there staring at Jake in complete shock. The timeline matches their first hotel rendezvous perfectly, Jake continued. Monica got pregnant in August during one of their weekend affairs. She's known the entire time that there was a chance the baby wasn't mine, but she let me believe I was going to be a father. She let me paint a nursery, buy baby furniture, go to doctor's appointments. Jake started crying then, and I reached across the table to squeeze his hand. Here were 2 people who'd been utterly betrayed by the people they loved most. Jake, I said, what do you want to do about this? I want them to pay, he said simply. Both of them. For what they did to us, and for what they stole from us. That's when we started planning. See, Jake isn't just any ordinary guy. He's a forensic accountant specializing in corporate fraud. And when I told him about Steve's embezzlement from his company, Jake's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. Sarah, what Steve did isn't just going to cost him his job. With the amounts you're talking about, and the sustained pattern of fraud, this is felony embezzlement. We're talking potential jail time. Jake offered to help me compile an even more comprehensive report for the authorities. Not just Steve's company, but the IRS, since Steve had been claiming personal expenses as business deductions on his taxes for years. But that's not even the best part. Jake also happens to know Monica's boss at the marketing firm where she works. Turns out, Monica had been claiming maternity leave benefits and using company resources for personal appointments, including booking client meetings at hotels where she was actually meeting Steve. I can prove that Monica committed timesheet fraud and benefits fraud, Jake said. She's going to lose her job too, and she'll have to pay back thousands in fraudulent benefits. We spent the rest of the day building cases against both Steve and Monica. Jake had access to financial records, phone logs, and legal resources that I never could have managed on my own. By evening, we had assembled what can only be described as a nuclear arsenal of evidence. But here's where it gets really interesting. That night, I got a call from my friend Lisa. Sarah, you need to know something. Steve showed up at Monica's apartment tonight, and the whole building heard them screaming at each other. Apparently, Steve had just found out about the paternity test results, not from Monica, but from a mutual friend who'd heard it from Jake. Steve was furious that Monica had let him believe Jake was the father, and Monica was furious that Steve was abandoning her now that things got complicated. The neighbors called the police because the shouting match was so loud and aggressive. No arrests were made, but there's now an official record of the domestic disturbance. Lisa managed to record some of the argument from her car in the parking lot. She'd gone there specifically to get intel for me. I have the best friends. In the recording, you can clearly hear Steve shouting, "You told me Jake was the father. You said this baby had nothing to do with me." And Monica screaming back, "You're such a coward. You left your wife for me and now you want to pretend this baby isn't yours? You're pathetic." Steve left his wife for her. He didn't abandon me in a moment of misguided chivalry, he abandoned me because he'd already chosen Monica over me long before that day. The recording also captured Monica admitting that she'd lied to both Jake and Steve about the baby's paternity because she wanted to see which one would step up and be a real man. So let me get this straight, Monica deliberately created a situation where she could test both men's devotion to her, using her own child as a pawn in her twisted game. I was so angry I couldn't see straight. But Jake, bless him, helped me channel that anger into action. This morning, we filed reports with the police for fraud, both financial and benefits fraud, submitted our evidence to the IRS, and contacted both Steve's former company and Monica's current employer with detailed documentation of their crimes. But we also did something else. We contacted a local news station. See, Jake's lawyer pointed out that this story has everything local news loves: betrayal, fraud, a newborn baby, and a woman abandoned during a medical emergency. The reporter we spoke with was fascinated by the complexity of the case and the amount of evidence we had. They're running a story tomorrow night called "When Love Turns Criminal, Local Couple's Affair Leads to Multiple Fraud Charges." Obviously, they're using pseudonyms, but everyone in our social circle will know exactly who they're talking about. Steve called me tonight. First time I've heard his voice since he left those pathetic notes under my door. "Sarah, please, you have to call off whatever you're doing. Monica is threatening to kill herself. She's lost her job, Jake won't let her see the baby, and now there are reporters calling her family. Please, just stop this madness." "Steve," I said calmly, "I didn't make Monica commit benefits fraud. I didn't make you embezzle money from your company. I didn't make either of you lie to your spouses for almost a year. I just made sure the truth came to light." But Sarah, Monica's family is disowning her. Her parents won't even speak to her. She has nowhere to go. And where exactly was I supposed to go when you left me on the side of the road with a broken arm? Silence. Steve, you made your choice. You chose Monica over me in every single way possible for 11 months. You chose her over me when I was injured and needed you most. Now you get to live with those choices. What about the baby? She's innocent in all this. You're absolutely right. That baby deserves better than parents who are liars and criminals. Maybe this will all work out for the best. I hung up on him. 20 minutes later, Monica called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Sarah, please, she was sobbing, I know you hate me, but please don't destroy my life. I made mistakes, but I'm a new mother. I need help, not punishment. Monica, I said, you didn't make mistakes. You made calculated decisions over and over again for 11 months. You chose to have an affair with my husband. You chose to lie to your husband about paternity. You chose to commit fraud at your job. You chose to use your pregnancy to manipulate two different men. These weren't mistakes, this was a pattern of deliberate deception. But I love him. She wailed. I love Steve. We're meant to be together. Then you should have divorced Jake and I should have divorced Steve, and you could have been together honestly. Instead, you chose to sneak around and lie and steal and manipulate. You chose to make your love story into a crime story. Please, Sarah. I'm begging you. Call off the reporters. Drop the charges. I'll disappear, I promise. You'll never hear from me again. Monica, I'm not the one pressing charges. The IRS is pressing charges. Your former employer is pressing charges. The police are pressing charges. I just provided evidence of crimes that were already committed. If you didn't want to face consequences, you shouldn't have committed crimes. She hung up on me. But here's the thing, I don't actually feel good about Monica's breakdown. Don't get me wrong, I'm not sorry for exposing the truth, but I take no joy in anyone's mental health crisis. I genuinely hope she gets the help she needs and becomes a better person for her daughter's sake. Steve, on the other hand? Steve I feel nothing but contempt for. Jake and I have become genuine friends through all this. We're both in therapy, separately and together in a betrayed spouse's support group kind of way, and we're helping each other navigate our divorces and legal proceedings. Jake is going to fight for custody of the baby, not because he wants to hurt Monica, but because he genuinely bonded with that child during the pregnancy and wants to protect her from the chaos her biological parents have created. His lawyer thinks he has a good case, especially given Monica's current instability and Steve's criminal charges. As for me? My arm is healing nicely, I've started dating again, nothing serious, just remembering what it feels like to be valued, and I'm building a new life that doesn't revolve around managing someone else's poor choices. The criminal charges are still pending, but Jake's sources in law enforcement say both Steve and Monica will likely face jail time, Steve for embezzlement and tax fraud, Monica for benefits fraud and potentially child endangerment. Using her pregnancy to manipulate multiple men apparently falls under emotional abuse statutes in our state. The civil cases are also moving forward. I'm suing Steve for reimbursement of all the money he stole from our joint account, plus damages for emotional distress. Jake is suing both Steve and Monica for fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress. But honestly? The money doesn't even matter anymore. What matters is that I learned my worth, I stood up for myself, and I refuse to be anyone's second choice ever again. Steve chose Monica over me, so I chose myself over both of them. And that, my friends, is how you turn the worst day of your life into the first day of your real life. Final update, the news story aired tonight. Steve's photo was clearly visible despite the pseudonym because they used footage of him being arrested this morning on embezzlement charges. Monica's mugshot from her arrest yesterday was also shown. Jake and I watched it together at his lawyer's office, and I have to say, seeing justice served on live television was incredibly satisfying. Steve's parents called me tonight to apologize for their son's behavior and to tell me they're ashamed of what he did. Monica's sister reached out to thank me for exposing the truth before Monica could hurt anyone else. Sometimes the best revenge really is just making sure people face the natural consequences of their own choices.